we know as Hamster in the community. So right over there, got the power supply and rebuilt the power supply, and in the process of rebuilding the power supply, discovered why the game originally stopped working originally, which was a manufacturing defect in the power supply, a cold solder joint. And when the power supply failed, it took out the whole game with it, which is what those early switching power supplies would tend to do. In addition to the monitors, the Aztarac used a switching power supply, which now is very common, but this was probably one of the first games that used a switching power supply. So we brought everything together. We got the board back from Quan from California. We got the power supply from Bill. Brian had done an intense amount of work cleaning everything. We invited Quan over to the warehouse. We plugged everything back together, and we turned it on, and it made a loud noise from the monitor and just this blooming light from the monitor, which if you're a vector collector, means shut the game off as fast as possible. And the next day, all the parts came in to start rebuilding the monitor. And I gave Ben the parts, and he went over and pulled the monitor out of the game again. In the process of taking the monitor apart, discovered that when we hooked everything back up after photographing every minute detail of the monitor, we forgot to reconnect one grounding line. And we reconnected the grounding line and turned on the game, and everything worked perfectly. So that's we're in the state of the game now. Even Andy was amazed. He said, I don't understand why a disconnected ground line in the monitor would keep the game from even booting up. It doesn't make any sense to me. It doesn't have to make sense. That's what happened.
It makes sense now, right?
It makes sense now. So this has been about 11 months.
No, a year. Well, last time I saw that machine was a year and a half ago.
Year and a half. So yeah, it's been a year and a half. There's been hundreds of hours put in by different individuals. Ben, Brian, Bill, Andy, myself, although my friend Rob will tell you, I don't really actually do any work. I just mostly take credit for work that other people do. But my job is that I get all those people into the right places in order to get this stuff done. But through the combined effort of all these amazingly talented people, we got the game working again.
Anything else?
Good.
What else would you?
No, I just thought it'd be.
Is that on? There we go. Just to finish up, before we hand over to Walter, who went on to say a few things. I just thought this is another letter from Tim. He seems to have a habit of writing a lot to his dad. This was another letter that Tim wrote to his dad just before he joined Century to write the game. And I just thought it was a great quote, and I just thought it would just be a great place to leave the presentation, really. So if you just indulge me for a minute, I'll read for you. So Tim wrote to his father, who clearly had some concerns about Tim's new career choice, writing video games. Tim wrote, think of video games as an art form, as I do, and then ask yourself what life would be like without movies, theatre, music, sculpture, exhibits, and so on. Even a golf course designer is an artist of sorts. Video games may not be art with a capital A, but to my way of thinking, anything that pleases and or amuses people and gets them thinking along lines that they might not have thought of before is art. If it happens to be profitable at the same time, then so much the better. And I'm quite sure you'll agree with all of us that when you see the Aztarac machine running, you'll agree with it. It truly is a work of art. Walter, over to you.
In December 1983, I had Twin Galaxies, which now is recognized as history's most famous video game arcade, in Ottumwa, Iowa, the video game capital of the world. It just happened that we were one of those very, very rare arcades that actually had an Aztarac. And you call it Aztarac? but I've never heard it pronounced that way before. Everybody always called it Aztarac, but is it Aztarac? It's Aztarac, isn't it?
Aztarac.
Okay. Naughty boy.
Yes.
Sit. So it's Aztarac. So we actually had an Aztarac, and I stood there and watched a lot of people come and play it, and the world record that still stands today, I stood there beside the guy and watched him score it. So it's now, how many years? That would be December of 1983, so that's an amazing thing.
144,000 some points.
Yeah, something like that. It was done by Dennis Bartlett, who's part of the group that organizes the new events that are just starting up now in Ottumwa, the video game capital of the world. However, could everybody with the Stryker family please stand? And please come on up here. And thank you. You guys are unbelievable. You got to do more things like this, Tony. John, you're unbelievable. I didn't even know you exist, John. Get ready for John's trading card next year, okay? And anyway, essentially, when we give a presentation like this, when Billy and I do this, something like this is not just done by my organization or even under the auspices of Billy. This actually is a gift to you on behalf of the global gaming industry. Everybody is involved in this. As we give you an award, I want to unroll it and unveil the official Tim Stryker trading card. So we have a copy of the card for everybody. So on behalf of us, we are honored to present this to you. Realize that you are now part of a tradition that's getting kind of older now. We're in our 7th year of doing this, where we've honored many, many important people who have been substantial contributors to the amazing, amazing global gaming culture, from the oldest days, the very beginning, which Tim is a part of, to even many of the people who are part of the most modern generation of those who are creating it as a bigger and bigger industry and a bigger and bigger sport. Let's hear it. Give them a hand of
One of the reasons why we like to do this is there's so many things that happen in the industry. There's so many people that participate in different ways that are just gone from our mind. All of us collectively. But what we do is we look at stuff, we research stuff, we find things that are sometimes considered minute, but have contributed to the culture of video games. And the fact of the matter is that when we create something, when we create a certificate, when we create trading cards, we take it, it's put in writing, it's part of history, it's forever memorialized. The truth is, if we didn't do this, eventually what he achieved would eventually leave the memory of the last person. And it would forever be lost to history. He would never get the credit he deserves. And by doing this, as I say, memorializing it, what he did, what he created, his contribution will literally, it'll live forever and ever. It'll always be there. It'll always be in the collection we created. It'll always have what you hang on your wall. It'll always be on a trading card. And again, his legacy will live forever, because that's what we all want. That's the passion we all have, and that's why we all do this here. So it's absolutely congratulations to everything he's ever done.
My big question is, see, Neil failed to mention that when he opened up the game and opened up and saw all the stuff in there and saw just the one credit on the game, the quarter was still inside there.
Yes, it was.
Dated 1983.
1983, and actually right now, it's still in there.
Okay, so what do you think the destiny of this game is? How long is it going to last with one play on it?
It's gonna lag because I unplugged it. We made sure they unplugged the other meter. And they better not connect it. You heard, John? Don't connect it.
So anyway, so eventually the company that put the games in the Twin Galaxies arcade, that company went out of business, and a truck pulled up and foreclosed on all their games, and that's where the Aztarac disappeared. It went back to Des Moines to a company called Philip and Moss, a distributing company. So who knows where that game has gone. But here's something interesting, Tony. At that time, I distinctly remember that we were talking that there were 200 copies of the game. That's a distinct, clear memory. So that may be the truth of what it was all about. So I'm going to hand these cards out now. And why don't you guys, Neil, why don't you unveil it?
If they found an Aztarac, and if they found just any Aztarac, it wouldn't mean that much. The fact that they found this Aztarac, I mean, absolutely means the world. When we go on these different hunts for these different machines at times, we were looking for a Defender at one time. The Defender we found was the Defender that traveled on the road with the band Journey. The Journey we found was a Journey that traveled on the road with Journey. So the fact that we have this Aztarac is 100-fold greater than if we found the one that Walter lost in Iowa. So that makes the moment far more special. I don't know, do we need a drum roll or something?
You ready, guys?
Ooh. Uh-oh. Let there be light, there's light.
I don't do too good on this. Give it a second. Between all the collectors, I think we've all agreed that this may be the only machine that has a fisheye, because I've never seen another one like it. No other game has it. So it is it's quite interesting of design. I mean, thinking about outside the box, it's really, really different. Eventually, you guys may, Brian, they're gonna be able to come up and walk up to the.
Yeah, anyone can play it.
They come up to the. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So if you guys want, if you want to take a look at it, you want to play it or whatever, you guys can come on, line up, and enjoy a little bit of Aztarac. Chase, please.
You want to do it, Karen?
Thank you, everybody.
I'm curious about this golden initial.
The initials? Yeah, the initials, you gotta give it a second. And I know it can't come out automatically.